Hi guys, welcome back to DeeperWoman the Podcast. It's your favorite co-host Abinaya Boa. I'm back, the Ghanaian princess, and I'm here with my co-host.
Wait, hold on. Who gave you the title of Ghanaian princess?
I am the Ghanaian princess.
You're not a princess. You are a queen. Okay, you're a queen. And
Okay,
it's your
okay.
favorite girl, Tox
Mhm.
Adelasi, in the building.
Yes. So
Yeah,
we are back once again with a banging episode, like always.
yeah.
So welcome to this platform, DeeperWoman the Podcast. If you're new, welcome. If you're not new, welcome as well. DeeperWoman the Podcast is basically a podcast, but also a community for all women of color, all women around the world. This is a platform where we share the most intimate and raw conversations ever. Tox and I started this platform basically just to be the sisters that we wish we had when we were, a bit younger. There are certain topics that we were not able to talk about, or we did not have anyone to talk about with. So hence why we started this platform. So if you want a community where you can talk about raw and unfiltered topics, you are welcome, And on this platform as well, we promote Black-owned businesses. So we support our Black sisters out there. If you have a business that you want to promote, you can contact us and we will promote it for you. We'll give you a shout out and we will also post it on our platforms. It can be nail salon, hair salon, whatever it is, whatever service that you offer. You can contact us and we can promote it for you. So yeah,
Yes.
folks.
Girl, you're looking so amazing today.
Girl, my hair is doing whatever. So
No, you
let's just
look beautiful today. You look beautiful.
thank you. Thank you. You look
So
beautiful as well.
yeah, thank you so much. So today, guys, as you can all see, we have another dynamic power lady on DeeperWoman the
Hmm.
Podcast.
Always.
We always have influential women on the podcast.
I know, right?
Women that have a voice that speak to the community. And
Yeah.
today we have Miss Azryah Harvey on the podcast today, and I'm so excited because we're going to talk about a topic that is, very. It's still going on in today's society, and we want to hear from the expert herself, Miss Azariah Harvey. As you all know, we know her from Backchat. She has been on some, controversial podcasts within the UK, and she's a content creator. She also has her own podcast. And one thing that I always noticed from Miss Azariah is that she has a very strong opinion. She doesn't care, like she's going to speak
Yeah.
her mind, and she has this organic vibe. Like she just
Yeah.
comes real raw and just herself.
Yeah.
So I
Very
respect that.
true.
I really respect that from her. And most of you know her from like on TV, but what is very interesting also is that Miss Azariah is an anti-racism consultant. So that is another side of her, and today she's going to tell us more about that side, and what she's currently doing in her life and what she uses her platform to do. So Miss Azariah, how are you doing?
Hi guys, thank you so much for having me. I'm doing okay. I've taken my super green juice this morning and I'm exercising. So yeah, I'm not doing too bad.
Yes.
Okay, that's
Wow.
good. I wanted to know, this is maybe a weird question, but do people ask you that you're related to Steve Harvey because your last name is Harvey? Because I was wondering.
No, I haven't had that. Have I had that one
Azariah
before?
Harvey.
I will take that
No,
as
I
well.
don't think so. No, I don't think I've had that
No,
one before.
people don't ask you if you're.
People might
Oh,
say behind
okay,
my back.
because
I hope I
I was
don't look like him though, but
you can be a far cousin. You never know.
You got beautiful children, though.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So, today, guys, we'll be talking about racism. We all know that racism is something that we still see in today's society.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And unfortunately, we still see it. And we, as you know, colored women, obviously Abana, I don't know if, Miss Azariah, she will tell us maybe later about that. Um, I have dealt with racism like all my life. If it's
Yeah,
not at work, it's
same
at
here.
school. And
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be very aggressive, but you know, the micro ones that are very like this little kind of insult or shade because you're, you know, a black colored woman, but
yeah,
you know, those subtle, like for instance, I'm a nurse, and in Holland you have like levels of nursing. You have like the assistants, the one that is allowed to do some, you know, medical procedures, and you have like the senior nurse, like the nurse that you will have, like, you know, the bachelor degree ones that have bachelor degrees level nursing. So I went to uni and I got my bachelor degree, and I have a degree in nursing. So obviously when I work in some settings, I my position basically is to coordinate the nurses that are under my care, to, you know, just to coordinate how everything is going. So if there's
yeah,
anything, they come to me, and if there are any difficult procedures, they call me and ask me to intervene, because yeah, by law I am allowed to do that, and I went to school for that,
yeah,
and I have a degree for that. And there was one time that I was sent to a unit, um and this unit was a place that they needed also a senior nurse, and there were also like level 2, level 3. Let's say I am a level 5 6 nurse, and then you have level 2, level 3 nurses. So when I came in, it was an agency job, so you will be posted somewhere. So when I was not familiar on that unit, so when I went there, I said, "Oh, hey, my name is Tox. I am ready to, you know, to start my shift. What can I do, and where do I put my belongings?" So the first question they asked me, because they assumed that I was a level 2, a level 3 nurse, like I was not capable to be the senior nurse on that unit. And
mhm,
there is nothing wrong if you are level 2 or level 3 nurses, because everyone can, you know, decide what he or she wants to be. But I found it very interesting that they assumed that I was a level 2 or level 3 nurse. And they
yeah,
did not even ask me, oh, am I a senior nurse? Because mostly I see this a lot of time, people that are level 5 nurses, you know, they expect it to be someone that is white or
mm,
non-black. So when they
mm,
asked me that, I was not even saying anything. I was just said, "Oh, I'm here. I have to work." And so they gave me like very simpler tasks, like, you know, making breakfast for the clients. Meanwhile, I'm authorized to give medication, you know, inject and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, if you want me to do the simple jobs, that is not a problem with me, because I will get paid
yeah,
as a level 5 nurse. So if you want me to make
yeah.
breakfast and do simple things, not a problem. So they actually didn't even
Wow.
ask me. So I went to do the stuff that they asked me, and they were all figuring, when is this level 5 nurse coming? Because, you know, she has to do the medication. And I was like, but I am a level 5 nurse. They said, well, why didn't you say so? I said, but why did you assume that I was a level 2 or level
Yeah.
3 nurse? And then the lady kept quiet, and he was like, oh, sorry, I didn't expect. So you didn't expect what exactly? And then, you
Mm,
know, the whole shift, she was very awkward, and I was just laughing within myself. So, you know, obviously I went to do my
that's crazy.
normal stuff that I wanted to do. But then I thought by myself that what was the reason actually, um, what was the reason that you didn't expect from a black lady to be a senior nurse or someone that has a higher education background? Because
Yeah.
most of the time, even if you apply for jobs, they don't expect to see a white lady, and even I mean, sorry, a black lady. And even, for instance, if I'm on the phone too, because I have a very Dutch accent, if you would hear me on the phone, you would think that you're speaking to like a white person. And most of the time when they then see you, then they're like, oh, I didn't, you know, they give this very
Yeah.
very weird
They're
attitude. Like,
obviously
oh,
shocked.
I didn't expect.
How long have you been here? I
Yeah,
get the question all the
yeah,
time.
yeah. How long have
Oh,
you
you
been here?
speak good Dutch. How long have you been here? Like,
Yeah. It's very weird, but that is basically I have encountered racism in that kind of form, mostly in workplaces, in work settings, and Abena, where in what setting have you encountered racism, or
oh,
Miss
many
Azariah?
times. For me, for me, I think I've always been this badass girl, don't fuck with me kind of person. So I already give that vibe off to people. I used to, I think there was a summer I worked for this nursing home, and then you can go to their houses and then clean for them, and you get paid. So you do the toilet, their living room, kitchen, and they're like old people. And then you get this thing where like they treat you like you're somebody that just fell from the sky. Like you just strange, your hair, and then where are you from? And then, oh, Ghana, okay, wow, wow. You must have a good life here because, well, what we see on TV,
Yeah.
and it's sometimes I'm just like, and
The
the
things
thing
that
with me
people
is that
actually say is crazy. The things that people say
it's
out loud, it's like, it's one
crazy.
thing to think it, but you guys actually say this out loud and don't realize how ridiculous and rude
No, they
this
do
is.
not.
Mm.
They do not. That's one thing I've noticed, that they do not realize it. They just say things. Can I touch your hair? I've had it a lot of times. Can I
Oh
touch
my
your hair?
God.
Can I touch your hair? And the thing with me, I always educate them. I don't make it a problem, but I make sure I let you know how it is.
Mm.
And I remember I went to Ghana one time and I called my classmates. We had a meeting, and they were like, "Oh, your background looks nice," and I showed them my house, and they were shocked. They were like, "How is it? How does that happen? Like, you have air conditioning?" They were shocked, and I was like, "But what did you guys think? What do you think we're doing here?"
Mhm.
Like, those little stuff. And also at school, you have to do more because you're black. You have to like prove yourself kind of thing. I
Yeah.
remember I had a higher grade than some white guy in my class who was always, the one with the, higher grade. He's always fighting for the 10. And then I had a higher grade than him, and he just lost it. He couldn't just digest the fact that I had a higher grade. And it
Hmm.
became like this awkward thing between us. I was like, really? Like, is this intelligence based on the skin color? Of yeah, for him,
Hmm.
it was, I guess. So yeah, it's just those little things. But I always make sure that people don't walk over me. Mm-mm. I do
Mm.
not allow that at all. No.
And that can be difficult because I feel like when you're, particularly when it comes to race, right? And when
Yeah.
you're compound that with the fact that you're a woman. So as a woman, you're already meant to be like calmer and nicer and da da da. And then when you're a black woman, it's like, oh, and then when you're a black woman and you're darker skin tone black woman, you've
Hmm.
got all of these things against you, and it really makes you feel like, would my life be easier if I just kind
Yeah.
of just try
Yeah.
to keep my head down, right? And so
Yeah.
I've always, when people are like, I don't let people walk all over me, I'm like, particularly when it comes to race, I'm like, I don't think people should understate like how much like just how much fortitude it takes to be like that, because it's not
Yeah.
like it's now and
Yeah.
again, it's all the time, and it can
It's
be so
hard.
exhausting. And
Yeah.
particularly when you do say, I am going to educate people, it's rude, it's whatever, but I'm going to take this as an opportunity to try and help people be better, whether or not they receive it
Yeah.
that way is one thing, but to constantly and to
Yeah.
commit to that and to do that is so difficult. And that's one thing don't think people actually understand, is how regularly it
Yeah.
happens, and to consistently like maintain your own integrity, and not change who you are when you're constantly bombarded with
Hmm.
like these
Yeah.
microaggressions and
Yeah.
comments and
Yeah.
this and that and blah blah. It's so difficult, but equally we're so used to having to do it. It becomes a part of like who you are. It becomes one of your principles, whereas other people kind of get to take that idea
Yeah.
for granted a bit, I think. So yeah, it's difficult. But I remember when I was working
Hmm.
in education, the first school that I ever worked in, was a private school. It was so bad. I think for me, I grew up in like all of my friends growing up were like, a lot of them were West African, East African. I grew up, there was a lot of a huge Asian population, like Canning Town, Custom House, a lot of West Africans. So I was constantly surrounded, thankfully, by people who looked similar to me. And so I think that mitigated a lot of the racism that I probably did receive, but because I was surrounded by essentially sisters, you know, you kind of got through it. And it's when you leave school, and it's when I was going out into the world, and I wasn't, I can't lie, I wasn't really around white people growing up. Like, it wasn't like, even my dad's side, because my dad's mixed, but even his side, all of my cousins and my aunts and uncles, they all have, you know, partners who are black, I guess. So I wasn't really around white people a lot. And I think growing up and leaving and then going out to university and going out to work, that's when I really started to, I would say, notice it. You know it's there, but you're kind of like, whatever. You can laugh it off, you can joke because you have that environment. But when you take that environment away, and now I'm faced with it by myself, I don't have anybody to turn and kind of like laugh it off with. My coping mechanisms have changed. And when I went to my first school, it was, and it wasn't just the racism. I feel like racism often comes with like classism and ableism, and all of these things can come with it. And I remember in my first school, it was a private school, really tiny. There was like 2 black pupils there. Me and a friend of mine, another Caribbean girl, we were hired the same year. So we started at the same year. And I was there for a year and a bit, and I was like, I left. I was like, I am out. Like, I'm done doing this. But I think that was one of the most anxiety inducing experiences I had professionally, because even after university, I didn't use my degree. I was in makeup. So it was really kind of like just really relaxed environment. So going into teaching is more, you know, structured, and it's more serious and all those things. And I think that was one of my first experiences of dealing with that, like, professionally. I feel like professionally you have things, but because I worked in makeup, it was kind of, again, you like brush it off, and it's retail. It's just, but when you're actually in a career and you're trying to build and you're trying to better yourself, and, you know, you've got these superiors and you have all these people that you answer. It was really bad. And I remember one time I came into school wearing a headscarf, because at the time I was growing my hair back. And I remember the look on the head teacher's face. She wanted to fall down and die right there. I could see it. I could see her looking at it in shock, like, this girl has really come in with a headscarf. But even she knows, what can I say? How can I even say anything about this without looking obviously like this is a form of racism kind of thing. She always used to get on to me about taking out my nose ring, about like all sorts of things. And I just thought, this does not affect my ability to teach at all. You just want this particular look and this particular archetype of a teacher because you've got a certain type of parent who's paying. And I just didn't fit into it at the time. I had my hair shaved. It was blonde. I had tattoos. I had my piercing. I just did not fit into this prim and proper, you know, nice teacher type. And the microaggressions, it was just a lot. It was a lot. And I remember leaving there thinking, wow, like, I can't imagine being like in corporate or finance or something. It must be like 10 times worse. Healthcare as well, I think, is a difficult one because you're dealing with so many different people. So yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And I also think that most of the time it comes from a place, those people that make these kind of subtle comments, it comes from a place of ignorance, like they themselves haven't experienced that. You know, imagine someone that is white and has only grown up with white people. Imagine what they would say amongst each other. And then, you know, dealing with a black person, for instance, I am now living in Germany and I live in a white neighborhood. If I say white neighborhood, it's white, Azariah, like as in white. If me and my husband and the kids go to church to the car, they will first look at us like, wow, these people, they have a car. Like they stare at you literally and make you so uncomfortable that sometimes my husband has to stop driving and just wave at them like, I see you, hello. And then they get scared and they get panicked and it's very, very creepy. Like, so
isn't it weird? Like, I find it so weird that, because the thing with black people is that we have this thing in us. There's this, especially Africans, we are not very hasty to ask questions. We have this respectful, there's this respectful way of asking things
I
or
know what you
doing
mean.
things.
Yeah.
But I've realized with white people, it's like they just go ahead and say it. Like, sometimes I'm like, did you think about it first?
But you
Yeah.
know
They
Like,
why?
don't.
just
It's
said,
because in life, as Black people, we're taught watch what you say, watch your tone. Watch like
yeah,
So true.
you already you
Mm.
already know there's so many stereotypes. You already know there's so many of these weird, odd expectations. And
Mm.
you're taught from a young
Mm.
age. Don't be that. Don't say this. Keep your head down. You're taught. It's all respectability, isn't it? You're taught how to be
yeah.
You're so
respectable,
right.
so that
Certain
where you
things
go.
you just
And
don't.
so, but white people don't have to do that. They can do what they want and say
No.
what they want, and it's like
Yeah.
they're just
And
live their
still
life.
get away with it.
Yeah, so they don't
Exactly.
have all these same considerations, and that's not even an insult to them. It's not even like it's just the way the world is, right? And you get to a point where you get to an age where you have to look and you actually think, actually, do you know what? They're right. I actually don't have to consider when I get angry. I'm allowed to be angry at work, and I'm allowed to, say what I want and
Yeah.
say my opinion, and I expect to be listened to and to be respected. Whereas us, it's literally the reverse.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
So you being an anti-racism consultant, how did you, because you told us now about, you leaving your job as a teacher, how did you roll into that career, like as a consultant? How did that start?
Yeah, my professional journey is just all over the place. But I done a business degree. I done marketing management. Absolutely hated it. Literally done it for the sake of going to uni. Didn't know what I wanted to study. Well, I did, but because I didn't do the right A levels, things just didn't pan out. So I got to uni and I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So I done this marketing management degree. Left uni, was doing makeup for a few years. I was like, it's fun, but like, it's not, I don't want a career in this. And then I had always kind of been into just the idea of education and trying to understand things. And I've always really been into like just people and society. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to get into education just because it was just something I felt really passionate about. And I thought, I know I don't want to teach, but I know I want to work in education. I know I want to have some kind of career when I can go in, connect with people and just kind of just support people in just being better in some way. So I thought education is a good place to start. It's with children. They're impressionable. They're open. They're curious. So I got my postgrad in education. And I knew I wanted to work specifically in SEN. But the school that I wanted to work in after I had finished my PGCE, they didn't have any vacancies. So I literally took the first thing that was given to me, and it was this private school. And then my friend who worked there, he was like, we have a vacancy. And I was like, right, I'm coming. So I applied, and then I left like a little bit into the new school year, and I started there in January 2020, I think, or 2019, one of them. I lose track now. And so while I'm working in SEN, like I loved it. I loved working in, and it was particularly social, emotional, mental health. So it was very sociological by its nature kind of thing. You had to think about their socioeconomic upbringing, their backgrounds, all sorts. And so I'd done that. And while I was working there, I became the equality and diversity coordinator. And so I was doing staff training, and I was the pastoral lead. And so I spoke a lot about race with regards to like the people's development and like their outcomes and things like that. And I was doing a lot of training in school, and we had someone come in for an inset day and do external training. And that was who I work for now. And so we worked collaboratively on training for my school to kind of tailor it. And then I started contracting with them. And then I went full time. And so now I'm doing my master's. So I kind of get to do all of that. I get to look at SEN in education. I get to look at race in education. So I've definitely found my feet over these past couple of years. And yeah, so I'm just going to continue kind of like with projects like that now, and trying to diversify, moving away from just schools and working in other aspects of education. But yeah, I feel like those few years I had in teaching just taught me so much and just really helped me figure out what I wanted to do. And this is definitely something I think I'll be doing for a very long time, as well as other things. But yeah, that's how I got here.
No, that's very nice. And in your field, like what sort of racism do you like? What form of racism do you consult on?
So we work in schools. So we go into schools and we call it anti-racism work. And so we look at essentially every dimension of racism. So we look at the idea of interpersonal racism. So we'll talk about those microaggressions and, those how we're communicating, how we're having discussions about race, things like that. We then also look at the curriculum. So what are you teaching the pupils? Like when you teach them the transatlantic slave trade, are you teaching them that, oh yeah, there was bad and good parts? Or are you recognizing that it was an absolute atrocity? There was nothing good about it. And we need to really unpack what the British Empire done. So yeah, you're talking about slavery, but how are you talking about slavery? Like stuff like literature, what books are you reading, etc. We look at policy. So your behavior policies, your uniform policies, do you have an anti-racism policy? Like, what do they look like? How are your policies affecting the pupils? Who is disproportionately affected? And then we also do workshops with pupils and staff training. So we'll train the staff and we'll go over all sorts of aspects. We'll go over bias, racial trauma, all sorts. And of course, we tailor it to the school. So it's not kind of like a go in one time. You know, people go and do an inset training for 2 days and they're like, right, we've done our diversity training. Like, we have a contract. We work with them throughout an entire school year. We come back again and again and again and again. So that's kind of, that's kind of our process. And then of course you can take that to any industry. You can take it to corporate, you can take it to finance, you can take it to healthcare, and you can do the same kind of diagnostic work and really dig deep and figure out what is going on here. Like, we understand the wider thing, but what's going on in your hospital, what's going on in your business, etc. And that's what I'm hoping to do, to start transferring those skills to other fields.
Wow. Wow. I think that is, I think that is amazing that you put your effort into teaching the society of today about racism, because some people still don't get it and they feel like they can just say anything what they want. And you mentioned also the education system. Why do you think, or let me put it this way, we see that in the education system sometimes there are bits left out of the education system for us to believe, or I don't know if I can say brainwashed, brainwashed students to think about the slavery in a particular way. Because sometimes when you even, like, there were these great Black African Americans that invented so many things. And it was when I grew up, then I knew, oh, he or she invented this, or he or she invented that. But I didn't get to learn that in school. So why do you think that the education system is picking and choosing what they want to teach kids nowadays, and not really teaching like the whole truth of who is who, and what's how the slave trade really affected the world of today?
Yeah, I think so. With this, it's like a multi-layered like thing. So you've got the aspect of the fact that white people, when I say white people, I'm talking about those in power, like governments, and that they have an idea. They know what they want pupils to learn. They know what they want. They know how they want this country to be represented, because the national curriculum that we have here in the UK is the most widely referenced curriculum in the whole world.
Wow.
Right.
Wow. True.
And so it's not just here that they're teaching Britain are this, Britain are. They're trying to maintain this idea of Great Britain. Right. And so in doing that, they need to make sure history is presented in a very particular way for a very particular lens, because Britain ain't been great for a hot minute. This place is a mess. Like, no, literally, we need to burn it to the ground and start again. This place is terrible. And so they are so desperately trying to hold on to what Britain was when they were going around colonizing, all of these countries and pillaging and taking all of these resources, and they had all of this power and this influence. They want to sustain that image, but that's long gone. So you've got that. Then you have the idea that essentially we are all a part of this world, this racist system. So we all internalize the same messages and then continue to perpetuate them. Because if I don't know about this history, I can't then go on and teach it in my classes, right? So we've already got that issue about what we've learned, and it's like you don't know what you don't know, kind of thing. And then you also have people who are still racist. You do have people who are still racist, who are in denial, who refuse to believe what the world that racism even exists. And so you've got all of these things happening, and then you add in like stuff like socioeconomic status, and all of these different things come together, and there's so much going on. But I think ultimately, at the end of the day, it's power and ignorance. You have powerful people who are determined to keep everyone very, very ignorant because it serves them. And the whole point of dismantling this and that's the point we really try and drive home when we go to schools. We can sit here and we can call individual people racist and say, yeah, no, you're a racist, you're a bigot. That's great. But at the end of the day, if it was only individual racism that mattered, it would be so much easier to deal with it. If it was literally people going around screaming the N-word, saying racial slurs, being hateful, it would be easy to spot those people. Most people would be absolutely disgusted. But that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the fact that when I tell you my first name is Azariah and then I follow with Harvey and you turn around and say, oh, I expected your last name to be really long and complicated. No, why would you say that to me? Like people can have an exotic quote unquote first name and an English surname. And do you want to know why? Because of slavery. My surname should not be Harvey.
Yes.
My Trinidadian grandfather should not have the name Harvey, but he does, right? And so when people are saying stuff like that, racism is around us all day, every day. And it's not about people feeling like guilty, like it's their fault. It's about us recognizing we all have to deal with racism. We all experience it. Whether you're white or black, how you experience it is going to be different, but we are all affected and impacted by racism. Some of us benefit from it. Others don't. Some of us do sometimes. The fact that I'm fairer skinned means that sometimes the fact that racism exists means I do benefit from it in certain contexts. In other contexts, I won't. And I think that complexity is what people really struggle with racism. They really think it's black, white, hatred, slurs, beating people up. They think of Stephen Lawrence and stuff like that, right? And all the other stuff in between. People just have no clue. And I think that's the hugest problem. People don't actually know what racism truly is.
So if you could define racism, like how would you define it for us?
So I would start by, we always stress that racism is a system. And racism is a system that means that certain people benefit and it's to other people's detriment to different degrees. And it's systematic and it's pervasive. It's all over the world. It's in all of our institutions. And it's also, I'd really try to drive home to people, racism is not about you. It's not about you as an individual, right? And I think when people speak about racism, they always make it, but I'm not racist. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't do that. And it's like, that's real nice for you. But the fact that you wouldn't do that doesn't change the fact that women are still dying 6 times more at childbirth. I understand that you think it's about you, but I actually don't care what your intentions are or how nice you are of a person. What I really care about is, do people recognize what the issue is? And are we all working to try and fix it? And if you're not working to try and fix it, I really don't care how nice you are. It's relevant to me because people are still dying. People are still living in poverty. Countries to this day are still being invaded. There's so much going on that just has nothing to do with you. And so when people make the conversation about them, I kind of think we can talk about this for a little while, but we need to move past this idea of you as an individual. And I think that systematic idea, just people just really struggle to grasp it.
I totally agree. And that is also what people, they say that in the Netherlands as well, they say that in a Dutch way, you say it, maar ik ben geen racist, but your uncle that is throwing shade at a barbecue about black people, so why don't you correct him? They have,
exactly.
It's something that as a community we have to do together. You might not be a racist, but your uncle, your aunts that are making, these inappropriate comments about black people or any other groups. It's not only about black people. Why don't you do something? Because you standing there saying nothing, you're actually participating. And it might not be direct from your mouth. So, and also, I don't know if you have seen the whole speculation about, Harry and Meghan. That is also a very great example of that there is racism. And I don't know if you have seen the Netflix series about them.
I've watched some of it. I need to finish it. I've watched some of it. I watched the first half.
Yeah. What was your take on the series, or from what you have seen so far? Because there was a lot of, accusations from that. There were people within the British royal family that they were like having a thing against Meghan, and they felt like she was a threat to the palace and stuff like that. And they were also denying the fact that it didn't have anything to do with racism. But how do you feel about it? Because I felt that it was something. It was about color. It was about race. I didn't think that they expect that Harvey would go for a colored lady. And once they found out that Megan was here to stay, they were like, oh, this lady's going to be part of the family, so we have to do something against it.
Yeah.
How was your take on that?
I believe everything Harry and Megan have said personally. And obviously I say that with a pinch of salt. Like, I don't know the details, but in terms of their experience and the motivations for their experience, I 100% believe. I believe it was racism. I believe that they said the things that they said. I believe the way that I believe them. But one thing that I did notice, and someone else said this and I was like, it's so true. Harry is defending his wife, right? Harry is not defending the whole of the black population in Britain or every black person in the diaspora, every black person. No. He's not. And that's not a slight on him. I don't need Harry to defend me. I can very much defend myself. I'm very well versed in this area, you know, and I don't think this is a bad thing, but I think as a man of a certain age, this isn't actually something you considered until you had a wife, you know, who had black heritage. So you're not my knight in shining armor. I don't appreciate it, but I do respect the fact that when it came to your wife, you were willing to stand up to that, because it's difficult, you know, you're from the royal family. And I think he was just looking for an excuse to leave also. So I think this was a great one for him.
Harry has always been different.
He has always been
100%. 100%.
And this was a push for him. I noticed that his being with his wife kind of like pushed him to be the person he wants to be. It's like an outweigh for him. So it just made him more vocal. And now he's talking and talking.
And talking.
He wrote a whole book.
And I think doing this work as well, working at anti-racism, like, I feel like before I was a lot, I don't think harsher is the right word, but I feel like I was a lot more angry about racism. And you would think that working anti-racism and having to deal with it so often would probably make you angrier and even start to make you a bit, you know, bitter and a bit of a cynic. And while that part of me definitely exists, and I'm a proud cynic, to be fair, I also think that understanding the complexities of racism, and especially going to the schools we go to, we work with so many people. And most of the people we work with are white because we work all around the country. So a lot of the schools we go to are predominantly white, and they're not bad people. And that's not me saying that they haven't maybe done bad things, or they haven't done things that are wrong, or they haven't done things that are racist, but they're not bad people. And while their intention doesn't matter when it comes to perpetuating racism, I didn't mean it. I don't care. Actually, I don't care if you meant it, because this was the impact. So I'm not getting at that. Like, their intentions matter more, because their intentions will never matter more than the impact. But I think doing the work has given me hope that people do have the capacity to learn and to change. And it depends where you meet people, where they are in their own journey, where they are in their own life. Had you tried to talk to Harry about this example a decade ago? Would he have heard it? Maybe not. Maybe that experience of his wife and, you know, having that, maybe in a place now to receive this information better. You know, I can't speak to that, but there's so many variables when it comes to people essentially confronting their own views and their own worldview. Because when you say to someone the world is racist, you're also saying to them, therefore, you are probably racist too. We all internalize racist ideas, whether we're black, white, or whatever. But then how those come out and how they affect people is where the difference is. Like, I've internalized ideas about my hair over the years, right? But they're internalized. So I see them when I look at myself. I can see another woman with her natural hair and I'm like, essentially, I wish I looked like that, right? But in my mind, I am just not beautiful with my natural hair. So my internalized messages affect me, but other people's the other message that people internalize, they also affect me, because now you're going around saying kids can't wear locks to school, right? And so we all have these racist ideas, but what we need to recognize is, what impact do my racist ideas have out in the world, you know, have on other people? And I think for Harry, he's realizing that impact that racism had on someone close to him, and so he's going, oh, okay, all right, I need to reevaluate now, because he didn't have that perspective before. And I really do wish them all the best. And I like Harry. I like them together.
I like them as well.
Yeah, you know, I like them and I wish them the best. And I think at the end of the day, everyone has their families, everyone have people that they love, and that's their aim should always be to protect them. So I respect what he's doing, but I definitely believe them, especially after watching The Crown. On Netflix. I 100% believe them.
Me too. I was kind of shocked. You should watch it.
I haven't watched it yet. Is it very nice?
It's really good. Wow. It's really good. Wow. And really accurate as well, apparently.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm gonna try to watch it.
I think for me, I was quite fortunate. I always appreciate it when I meet like white people who stand up against racism. but then have also educated themselves, not just, joining in and be like, oh,
Yeah, that part.
but they have educated themselves. And I met this girl at school, and she's a Christian as well. So we became like really close, and we used to share a lot. And she loves to travel and stuff like that. And we were talking about racism one time, and then she was like, there was this time her parents made a comment, and she put them in she put them in their place, and they were looking at her like, what is wrong with you? And then she always let me know, like, it doesn't matter to her, if you are a parent or a grandparent, she will put you in your place, and I really loved that about her, because you can tell she's ashamed. Most of the time she's ashamed of
Of
her
what they're
people.
doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, she's just like, and then you see her, and she apologizes. She's like, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry for what my people are doing, because it's just sad. And I just appreciate that when I meet people like that you can have like conversations with, and they're just normal and welcoming, and they're educated, and they make sure that they know what is going on, and not come in with the energy of, and where are you from, and what, and this and this. Sometimes I'm like, we are in 2023, like, at least if you have not met one Black person, just make sure that you know what is going on in this world. You cannot tell me in 2023 you have not even met one. It's not possible. To me, it's not possible.
Especially with the internet, you have at least
You
seen
you
one.
meet,
I know you use the internet. I know you've at
like,
least seen one of us.
and I don't know if you know about our Netherlands, that we have this thing that we celebrate at the end of the year, and it's called Santa Claus kind of thing, but our own version, where Santa Claus has his helpers, and the helpers paint themselves black, wear an earring, have
Black
an
beats.
afro
Yeah.
hair, black beads, and they help Santa Claus with sharing the gifts and stuff like that. And this thing has been a problem in this country.
I've never heard of that before.
You should check it out.
I am gonna check it
Remember,
out,
I
because we
watched
actually are working with a school in Netherlands,
yeah.
so I will
Oh,
check it out,
wow.
definitely.
Oh, wow.
You
Yeah,
should check it
yeah,
out.
yeah. I will.
You should check
We
it
didn't
out,
know that. That's
because
going to be interesting when I tell my colleagues. So
yeah,
we will.
there are some parts here that have, they are working on it to change it, because they say it's for kids. So essentially, kids don't care about how you look; they just want their gifts. So you get me? Like, kids just want their gifts, but it's the grown-up people who have taken it like very strongly. Like, if you don't agree, go back to your country, because it's our culture. That's how we do it. And it's racism. Like, if you
Yeah.
go back to the
Like, why
Dutch
is that your culture? Why are you so
books
proud
and
of that part
stuff,
of your culture?
yeah, it's just weird. And, stuff like that. I remember a few years back, I don't know if it was like 2019 there, and that's when people have been trying to fight against it, but that was where they really started rising up. And I remember that particular year, when the time came for that celebration. Wow. If you got into the bus and you're Black, it was just awkward. The
Oh
looks that you get,
no.
the looks that you get, and people started talking online, and you see a lot of white people like showing their true colors,
Yeah,
and
but it
people
is
that
about race.
and I was like, how is this a children's party? Like,
It
this
is
is
not.
like,
And this is the energy you guys are coming with. Like, you
Yeah.
want to fight.
Yeah.
The things they're willing to fight for is so funny. I was like, I can tell you guys don't have any real problems, because the fact that this is what's really doing you, this is what's keeping you up at night. Wow.
Exactly. Yeah. It's very crazy. and they keep on saying it doesn't have to do with anything racist, but as soon as a black person stands up for himself and say we find that
You will
racist,
see the insults.
you will see the insults. Yeah, Colin. And it even how the character is described, the character has big lips, big nose, fluffy afro hair, red lips,
Red lips. And when
And
you go back into the books, that's how they used to draw black people.
Yeah.
So you
What's it
cannot
called? There's a
tell
word for it, and
me,
I've forgotten it now.
yeah,
I've forgotten the word now.
you cannot tell me that, it's not racist. It's just, and most of them don't even care about your feelings when you talk about it. Then when you go to work and then you see your colleagues asking, what do you think about, the whole, are you for black beats or
I
you
told
are?
them I don't celebrate anything. So don't ask me that question. We are at work here. So please go and check that client at room B, please. And then I walk away. What kind of rubbish are you asking me?
And
Am I your friend?
they want to know where you stand so that they know where they stand with you.
Where they
You
know what
know?
they can say and what they can't. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you're against it, then that's where, they start acting awkward and treating you different because you're against it. It's a problem.
It's a minefield, and people don't realize that. And another thing, a lot of people they really think racism is down to what your intention is and what you mean. We don't mean to offend you, and so we don't feel like it's about racism. Therefore, it's not. I don't care what. I don't care about your feelings. You don't care about mine. I certainly don't care about your feelings,
Yeah,
And so because they're like, oh, it's not about they're like, it's our
exactly.
tradition. The fact that it's our tradition is more important than the fact that it's racist. Tradition here, racism, like down here somewhere, and they prioritize it in that way.
And before we end the show for today, what advice would you give our listeners if it comes to, if someone has encountered a very awful situation where he or she has encountered racism? What would you advise? What would your advice be for our listeners? How should one react? Because if you're black, you can respond with the aggression that you have. Someone might end up in the hospital. So what what would be the advice for our listeners?
It's difficult to give like blanket advice because situations are like whether you're on work or whether you're in the street, things change. But I think one thing I will say is like think about kind of like how what your stance is, and think about, okay, is this an opportunity to actually educate someone and say something, or do I actually need to walk away? Because sometimes some people are not worth engaging with. Like they don't actually deserve your time, and they don't deserve your effort, and they don't deserve like a look into your mind, and they don't deserve your understanding and empathy. And I think there's situations where someone may say something and it's racist, and you may have a relationship with them and you're like, right, that was definitely racist. I know they didn't mean to offend me, but I need to check them. I need to tell them that they can't say that and why it's a problem. You may have other people who actually don't deserve that time from you and that level of empathy where you try to see their perspective.
Yeah.
And you may have to just tell someone, don't ever in your life ever think that it's okay to say that to me or anyone else. And I don't have to explain myself to you. I don't have to, justify my behavior to you. And you have no right to say that or do that or whatever it is and stand up for yourself. And then you have the situations where it's literally just like, I'm not going to engage with you because one, it's probably not going to be very good for me, but it's definitely not going to be very good for you, and I'm not going to engage. And I feel like that's the choice you have to make. Am I going to educate? Am I going to stand up for myself and put people in their place? Or am I literally going to say, you're not even remotely worth it? And I'm not even going to engage with you. And I think that's usually the decision you have to make. Is one of those three. And honestly, you might get to a situation and the next day wake up and look back and think, I shouldn't have handled it like that. You might think, you know what? I regret trying to educate this person because that was a horrible traumatic experience for me. It just made the situation worse. Or you could ignore someone, wake up and think, no, I really should have given them what for. I really should have told them where to go. And so that's always going to happen. It doesn't matter how well versed you are in that, in the complexities of racism or how confident you are talking about that. You always look back on racist situations and think, I could have handled that differently. But as long as you do what you feel is right in that moment, just trust your gut. Like you made that decision for a reason. And if you can learn something from it, absolutely learn from it, move on, apply it next time. But ultimately, that's the decision you need to make. Is this person worth my time, worth my energy? And if not, do they need to be like, do I have a relationship with this person? I need to set a boundary and be like, no, that's not okay. And I think that's what I would say. That would be my advice.
That is a great advice. I think that we can all relate that it's your choice to educate or just to walk away from the situation. Sometimes it's also good to walk away, because some people out there are also on a hidden agenda.
They're just trying to provoke you.
They just try to provoke you and just try to get the best out of it. And then at the end of the day, you will look like the crazy one. So sometimes it's also just to analyze the situation and to walk away from that situation. So I love that advice. So guys, it's a wrap again on DeeperWoman the podcast. It was a very interesting, educative episode. I really loved that Miss Azariah spoke on some, very important topics that affects the community of today. And I hope you have, learned something today. If you are following us on Instagram, continue following us, sharing us, liking our content. And that is, you can find us on Instagram on DeeperWoman the Podcast. And on Facebook, we have a Facebook group. Kindly follow us on Facebook group for more content. That is DeeperWoman the Podcast on Facebook. And if you have any suggestions, if you want to be a guest or you have any comments, feedback, you can send us an email at DeeperWomanThePodcast@gmail.com. Azariah, on what social handles can they follow you?
So you can follow me on Instagram. I don't have Twitter at the moment. I reactivate and deactivate because that place is like a cesspool of negativity. So I am trying not to, engage. But if you do ever fancy following me on there, and I do happen to be activated, everything is _Azariah. So that's _AZRYAH. And I have TikTok, which I have one video on, and I have Instagram, and I have Twitter, Twitter sometimes. So, but yeah, in Instagram, I'm around. That's the best place to catch me.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time and your
It was so
presence
lovely to speak to you guys.
We'll love you.
We really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So guys, we see you next week with a new fire episode. Bye.
Bye.